You notice there's a hangar or a hangar house associated with each place. Well, it's a flying community, so the streets double as taxiways. Man, you want to go somewhere, you crank up the airplane and take off. Come back and land and taxi on the streets to get home. If you meet a car head on while you're taxiing in, the car's supposed to get off in the grass and let you go, you know. This is my airplane, and why, after 30 years with American Airlines and 6.5 years military, is a guy still flying? I guess it's the love of flying, and once it was all over with the airline, I had the desire to continue. So I found this flying community, bought this airplane off of the internet. I stumbled into it through ROTC, went the military route, learned to fly with the military. Flew biggest thing in the world at the time, the B-52s in the military. And after 6.5 years, not really ecstatic about the mission and wanted to continue to fly, I got out and went with American Airlines in 1964. The accuracy historically would be to say that I was the first to fly with any trunk line carrier without a fight. There are three guys that I always like to mention to try to keep the history straight. And they are as follows. The first would be Perry Young. Perry Young was a Tuskegee Airman and wanted to fly commercial. And nobody would have him. He knocked on all the airline doors and, sorry, you know, unable. So he was unable to get work with the air carriers. After him, there was a guy by the name of August Martin. Augie Martin flew freighters for, I believe, Seaboard and World. And number three would be Marlon Green. And Marlon Green applied for Continental. He was hired and showed up for his job. Headquarters for Continental at the time was Denver. And when they realized that he was African American, well, they decided to try to back out of the whole process and not hire him. To shorten that story, he sued Continental, and he not only sued them for his job, which he had already been awarded, but and then subsequently denied, but he sued him for back pay and back seniority to the date that he was promised a job. By that time, and unbeknownst to me that was even going on, I applied for 3 or 4 different airlines, turned down by a number of them, but then came to American and was hired, processed, and went to school. And actually, I ended up, I think, flying the line with American before Marlon Green finished his case. And finally he was awarded it all, but I think I ended up flying on the line before he finished it up. But those three guys preceded me in the process, that I always like to mention them because they were part of the, even though one was helicopter, one was freight, and Continental was a smaller outfit at the time, they started the process. Sharp looking airplane, I think. I think it's one of the classiest looking airplanes on the, it's actually an old airplane. This is 1984. And was built in Toulouse, France. I'm the third owner. It's too bad it's such a rainy day out there today, because knowing that you were coming, my intentions were that maybe we'd do some of this airborne. I had planned to take you a ride in this thing, but as you can hear the rain pounding on the hangar, we're not going to fly in this, but you can come back. I'll take you up some other time. Ooh, what am I most proud of in my career? Well, it was successful and without any major incidents, I guess. This is a big thing to be proud of. It was a long 30-year service with the best airline in the world. There were good people to work with, and I could not have fallen into a better place as far as the people of American Airlines. This was from American Airlines as a chief pilot This one is from OBAP, Organization of Black Airline Pilots, and I was the first to receive a captain's a plaque that we do at OBAP. This was taken in the cockpit, sitting in the cockpit of the MD-11 over Santiago, Chile, in the middle of our trip. Dave Harris and his buddies at one of our conventions. At this point in time, I was the only captain at American, I think the only in the industry at the time. This was an ad that American ran in Ebony magazine for a couple of months. This represents the first time in the U.S. that an all-black cockpit flew passengers for hire. This is the this poster comes from the Black Wings display that's in the Smithsonian, representing African American participation in aviation from way back. You have a representation of early pioneers in the industry, both military, space, and commercial. And then yours truly, Dave Harris, American Airlines. This was when I was in one of the Boston schools in Roxbury doing a career day for kids. I was flying captain on a Bach 111, and we were, I think, coming out of Indianapolis, and the people were boarding from the ramp, no jet bridge. And as I saw the people getting on, I looked and I saw Mr. Young, Whitney Young. He was the executive director of the Urban League at the time. And so I got out of my seat and went to the cockpit door, and when he got to the top of the stairs, I stopped him and introduced myself to him. I said, "Mr. Young, I'm Captain Harris." I said, "Step in here, I want to meet the co-pilot." And he did. And I said, "I just want to say to you, before you take your seat, thanks for all you're doing." Here's the part that gets me most of the time. I said, because it's because of the work that you're doing with the Urban League that finally I'm able to secure this job. Well, he said, "Thank you very much." He took his seat, and that was the end of it. But he obviously remembered the incident, because when he died in Lagos and Chappie James flew over to bring him back, and President Nixon was in office at the time. And when he died, Margaret Young, his widow, who just recently passed away, by the way, came to American through Bob Gudger and said, "You got a Captain Harris flying over here, David Harris. I would like him to fly the funeral charter." So they found me, and I flew with the funeral charter. Anybody who was anybody in the civil rights movement at the time was on that airplane. You name them: Andy Young, Jesse Jackson. And a parting shot from my wife when I went out of the house to fly that, she says, "For God's sakes, don't screw this one up." She said, "You'll wipe out the whole civil rights movement, you know." So with that parting shot, I flew the charter, and it was a very sad occasion, but quite an honor to be asked to fly that. We always go back to the same scenario: education, education. Take care of your body physically, stay off of drugs, you know, and look at education as not drudgery, but fun. Make arithmetic fun, make algebra fun, make whatever you're learning interesting and enthusiastic about it, because that's what's going to carry you through. And don't worry about whether you can get a job doing whatever. Just prepare yourself. If you've got the right stuff, you're going to get hired.